All right, let's talk about adolescence, but maybe not in the way you're used to thinking about it. We're not going to treat it like some problem that needs fixing. Instead, we're going to look at it as this incredible, essential journey, a total transformation. We're basically going to map out the whole thing, the physical, the emotional, the mental, everything that takes a kid and turns them into an adult. So, let's get into it.
So, let's start with the big question, right? The one we've all asked at some point, whether we're in the thick of it or just looking back. Why are the teenage years so turbulent and confusing? That's what we're here to unpack. We're going to use this idea of a journey as our guide to figure it all out.
Okay, first things first, let's get our definition straight. It's super easy to think that adolescence just happens. You know, like a switch flips on your 13th birthday or something. But that's not it at all. The reality is it's way more of a slow burn. We're talking about a transition that can last a whole decade, sometimes starting as early as 9 and going all the way to 19. And here's the really important part. Everyone's on their own timeline.
So, to make sense of this huge journey, it helps to have a map. And our map breaks adolescence down into 3 main stages. Early, from about 9 to 12, middle, from 13 to 16, and late, from 17 to 19. We're going to walk through each of these stages piece by piece to really see how this incredible change happens.
All right, let's start our journey. Part 1 is all about the physical blueprint. This is the stuff you can see, right? It's the most visible part of the trip, where the body starts this massive, kind of crazy reconstruction project for adulthood.
So when we talk about the physical changes of puberty, they really come in 2 flavors. You've got your primary characteristics, that's all the internal stuff, the mechanics, the things happening directly with reproductive organs. And then you have the secondary characteristics. These are the external signs, the ones everyone notices, a voice changing, breast development, all the outward signals that things are shifting.
Now, if you look at the timelines for boys and girls, one thing should just jump right out at you. Those age ranges are huge. 9 to 13 years old, 10 to 15. The order of events is usually pretty predictable, but the timing, it's all over the place. And this is so important because it means you can have a 7th grade classroom where some kids look like they're in high school and others still look like they're in elementary school. That difference alone has a massive impact on the whole social and emotional scene.
And let's be real, this whole process is not exactly graceful. This quote here nails it. The changes don't happen smoothly. It's all a bit awkward and clumsy. And there's a reason for that. Your feet can literally grow faster than the rest of your legs and arms. So that classic teenage awkwardness, it's not just in your head. It's a real physical thing happening because your body is basically a construction zone where different parts are being built at different speeds.
Okay, so that's the body. But what's happening on the inside? That brings us to part 2, the emotional roller coaster. While all this physical stuff is going on, the world of feelings turns into this wild, complicated, and often super confusing maze.
You can really boil this whole emotional landscape down to 3 key shifts, and you'll see they're totally connected. It all kicks off with those mood swings that seem to come out of nowhere. That emotional chaos then sparks this powerful, intense need for independence. And that need for independence drives the next big step, this process of psychologically distancing from family. It sounds tough, and it can be, but it's a crucial part of the journey.
And here's a really important reframe. That push for independence, it's not just rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's not just about breaking rules. It's actually a sign of something amazing happening in the brain. It's tied directly to brand new reasoning powers. A teenager is literally developing the ability to think for themselves, to form their own opinions, and naturally, they want the space to test those new abilities out.
Which brings us back to that psychological distancing. It sounds kind of harsh, right? But it's absolutely essential for growing up, and it actually follows a pretty logical path. First, you start to develop your own personal sense of right and wrong. That naturally makes you want to hang out with friends who see the world the same way. Then, with this new perspective, you start to question the ideas and values you grew up with. Not to throw them away, but to really examine them and decide if they still work for you. And all of this leads to the final step, redefining your relationship with your parents. Okay, we've covered the body and the emotions. Let's move on to part 3 and go inside the teenage mind. This is where things get really interesting because adolescents are basically developing these brand new mental superpowers. But just like in the movies, when you get new powers, they're not exactly calibrated yet. They can be a little unpredictable and hard to control.
One of the biggest features of this new mental world is something we can call the main character effect. The technical term is adolescent egocentrism, and it really hits its peak around 15 or 16. This one concept is huge because it completely changes how a teenager sees their place in the universe.
So what does that even mean? Well, it's basically this intense focus on your own inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, and it leads to this really powerful but ultimately wrong assumption that everybody else must be thinking about you and your world just as much as you are. And this one idea creates two really big side effects.
The first one is called the imaginary audience. It's exactly what it sounds like. The constant feeling that you're on a stage and everyone is watching your every move.
This quote just captures it perfectly. It's not just a feeling of being noticed, it's the belief that you're the target of everyone's attention and, more importantly, their criticism. It's why tripping in the hallway or saying the wrong thing in class doesn't just feel like a small mistake, it feels like a massive public humiliation.
And if you think about it, this idea of an imaginary audience explains so much classic teenage behavior, doesn't it? That extreme self-consciousness, the very specific way someone might dress, either to blend in perfectly or to stand out dramatically, or even the opposite, just withdrawing completely to get away from that imaginary spotlight. It all comes back to this feeling of constantly being watched.
Now, the other side effect of feeling like you're the main character is something called the personal fable. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you believe everyone is watching you all the time, you must be pretty important.
The personal fable is this deep-seated feeling that you are special, that your experiences are totally unique, and that you're kind of eternal, invincible. And this can be a good thing. It can give you a lot of strength, but it's also the thing that can lead to risky behavior. It's that classic, it won't happen to me feeling, the belief that the rules just don't apply to you in the same way they apply to everyone else.
And all of this brings us to the final stop on our map, the destination. We're approaching adulthood. And as this long journey starts to wrap up all that turbulence, the physical, the emotional, the mental, it finally starts to settle down.
We're now in what's called late adolescence. This is usually from about age 17 to 19. And all the tough foundational work from those earlier, more chaotic stages, it's really starting to pay off now.
So what does this stage look like? Well, all the signs point in one direction: readiness for what's next. The focus starts shifting away from just the self and towards building more stable, intimate relationships. That inner sense of self starts to feel less like a question mark and more like a solid identity. And it all leads to this very real desire not just to be treated like an adult, but to actually step into that role and be independent.
So when you look back at the whole map of this journey, you see it, right? What starts out as this really gradual, sometimes awkward, and definitely confusing process, in the end, adds up to a truly profound transformation across the board, physically, emotionally, and inside the mind.
And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. If we stop seeing adolescence as just a list of problems to get through, and instead see it for what it is, this essential, universal journey of transformation, how does that change things? How does it change the way we look back on our own experience? And maybe more importantly, how does it change the way we support the people who are on that path right now?